Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Eversio Experience podcast. Dr. Desiree Caruso and I are here to talk to you about our most frequently asked questions today. I feel like this episode has been a long time coming,
Mhm.
and I love that it is by us for you. These are not questions that we have come up with. These are questions that we have been getting really for the past 3 years and collecting kind of a list of what comes up most frequently. So, here we go with the FAQs.
Mhm.
And I think let's just dive right in. And I think I'm going to ask the biggest question. We get this all the time. We get this question so often that Dr. Desiree actually designed a quiz about it. So, Des,
Mhm.
which functional mushroom product is right for me? Where
Mhm.
do I start? This is the question we get asked all the time. Tell us how we dive in and answer this question many times every single day.
Yeah, it is the biggest question. Where do you start? And I think people sometimes are looking for an exact question, an exact mushroom, thinking that we're going to know all the answers. And part of it is that the person who is asking this question is going to have more insight about themselves and their life than we are. And so it really depends on many different factors. It really depends on your health status. So, how are you feeling? What are some of the areas that you need some improvement in? It really depends on your lifestyle, your routine. What is possible for you? What's your desired health outcome? Like, what are you looking to improve? And then it also depends on the benefits of each mushroom. So when you go ahead and think about those things, then you're going to be able to determine or at least narrow down your search. When people say, like, which functional mushroom product is right for me, well, the first step is identify what are some of the areas of your life or your health or some symptoms that you are looking to improve on. Maybe you come up with three of them. Maybe it's sleep, energy, stress. Maybe there's more. Just list out all of the different areas that you would like some support in. And then from there, what you can do is really hone in on the symptom or area that you need to target first.
I love that. And this is why we offer the quiz because surprisingly people don't do this, right? We're
Yeah.
not waking up in the morning and journaling, how do I really feel today? And maybe it's a practice that if you're not feeling yourself, if you're not feeling aligned, if you're not feeling that you would describe your health as abundant, that's a great place to start is just zeroing in on what it is. What is the thing or the things that are really not feeling right about you? And then that's exactly what you did when you created the quiz.
Yeah, when we created the quiz, there are very common health questions that people ask us. So we started to recognize patterns as they're coming in. Sleep questions are very frequently being asked, as well as energy, stress, etc. So we took the most common questions that our community is asking and with respect to specific health areas. And then from there, we have research that we have collected and looking through and all of those things. So then we determined, okay, these are the main health benefits for each of the functional mushrooms. And we essentially mapped out an algorithm for helping people determine like what is the best area to start. So I think first identifying one particular area, one particular functional mushroom to target first is going to be your best bet. And oftentimes, when you take a moment to reflect on your greatest health need, oftentimes, not always, but most of the time, it's going to be the root cause.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's such an interesting thing that has really come to me lately
Mhm.
is most of the people that come to us with some type of a chronic health condition, because that's where I was, I look at them and think, can you just start with your gut? I don't care what the chronic health condition is. Not that I don't care. I know there are people that are suffering and that shouldn't be the way, but everything for me started in the gut and I was so blind to
Mhm.
that. I was only looking at the symptom making my life inconvenient and for me that was inflammation. But when we look at what was the cause of the inflammation and I moved my way back and it showed up on my skin, it showed up on my joints, but essentially when I started to address my gut health, everything else came back in line and that did not happen in a day. That did not happen in a month. That did not happen in a year. This is not a quick fix. Mushrooms aren't a quick fix. So when you're getting an answer from our quiz that says this is the mushroom for you, the beautiful thing is it doesn't matter which mushroom you choose, they're all great for gut health
Mhm.
because they all act as prebiotics and we all need more of that. So I think what's happening is yes, reishi is great for sleep, lion's mane is great for focus, cordyceps is great for energy. They all have these kind of superhero powers, but they all do one thing that is helping you regardless of where you are create this foundation. So
Mhm.
I think people are taking the quiz and they're getting one answer back, one product, start here. And I think that, Desiree, that's your way of saying to them, don't take all nine at once because you won't know what's happening. We have to give you one answer so that you are able to start. Just get started. Don't
Mhm.
wait. The quicker you get something in you, the quicker you can start to assess what's happening with that and add from there or delete from there. But I think what I love is that all of them are going to address what I think is something we could all use to address on a regular basis.
Mhm.
So so there's the quiz. And do you think that so how long has the quiz been around now?
I think over a year now.
Yeah, and do you think that since we have offered the quiz, we get fewer questions about this? Where do I start?
We definitely get fewer questions because people are answering those health questions that we've come up with. So it's almost like you're feeling like you are heard, or that's part of the process is factoring in all of those different questions, all of those different health concerns, and it's giving you one answer, one product for where to start. And I think it's providing people with a direction and some guidance that all of those factors have been considered.
Yeah, 100%. So if you are listening to this episode wondering that, where do I start? I've tuned in to listen to these mushroom nerds because a friend told you that we might be able to offer some insight. You can go to our website, eversiowellness.com, and at the very, very top of the page, there's a rolling banner with a link you can click. I think it just says take the quiz
Mhm.
and get started there. At least you will get the algorithm suggestion and know that the algorithm is not just something that we bought and paid for by somebody else. Dr. Desiree created that with the knowledge that she gained from you, from our community and what they were asking for. Okay, so now you've got an answer. So let's say the quiz kicks out to you. You need to start with a blend, and it's the three mushroom blend, and you're going to start introducing that. How do you use these products? We get the product in our house. Desiree, tell us, what do I do with it? How do I use functional mushrooms in my lifestyle?
The thing to keep in mind is that functional mushrooms work best with prolonged use. So they need to be taken consistently for a longer period of time. That is what the research supports for particular health benefits. And of course, some people will notice the benefits much quicker than long term or X number of weeks. And some people, it takes a little bit longer. I think the first thing to keep in mind is that if it's something that's more chronic, it's probably going to take longer, just with anything. Right? Just with any sort of intervention that you're changing, something that's more acute can take shorter. And then depending on the different functional mushrooms benefits, you might notice it quicker, like reishi or cordyceps, right? Like we noticed it right away
Mm-hmm.
taking it just because of the energizing and calming properties. So that's the first thing to keep in mind is that it needs to be consistent. When we're adopting it into our lifestyle, we need to pick a way where it's going to be easy for us. This doesn't need to be a
Mm-hmm.
chore. It's something that's already added onto our routine and it fits easily. If you're somebody who doesn't like taking capsules,
Don't choose capsules.
don't choose capsules and take one of the powders because then it's going to be easier for you to take it consistently because it's conducive to your lifestyle. That's the biggest thing is that it's okay if what works for you is something completely different than maybe Brandi is doing. Brandi loves to put in her smoothie. I love to put in her smoothie. And if you just don't like the powders, that's okay. Finding a way that works for you. Now, here are some suggestions. If you are not a capsule person, don't worry about it. We have 3 multi-mushroom blends. It's a powdered consistency and you can put it into anything that you like. You can put it into your coffee, tea, smoothie, chia pudding, yogurt, soups, sauces, all of the things. There are no limitations because the functional mushrooms have already gone through the extraction process. So it's not going to be affected by any change in temperature, whether you're baking it, whether you're putting it in something cold, it doesn't matter. So that's a factor to consider. If you are somebody who doesn't like the powders and you don't want to alter the taste of your coffee or it's very sacred to you to have it that way, that's totally fine. Then take a capsule. With capsule products and or even the blends, when you're taking it at a particular time of day, the time of day might be influenced by the particular benefit that you're after. For example, if you are somebody who is really looking for some support with sleep, maybe we've identified that there are two functional mushrooms that can help with overall energy levels. Reishi definitely for sleep. You're taking it prior to bed. Maybe you're taking it an hour before bed, 2 hours before bed. Or taking cordyceps in the morning to help with that energy throughout the day so that you feel like you have enough energy to do all the things throughout the day so that you are more tired and can transition into sleep later in the evening. That time of day that you're taking it really is dependent on what health benefit you're after. And then from there, just tweaking it. If you're taking it an hour before bed, but you're finding that that doesn't really work for you, well, maybe right after dinner. Maybe there's a sweet spot for you in terms of when you're taking it. I think that's really important. There is no wrong answer. It's whatever works best for your lifestyle. Take this as permission to do the things that are best for you.
I was just going to say that. I think that this is you giving everyone a permission slip to do what is right for them, not what their friend or the internet or the back of our bottle even says, because nobody knows you like you do, and you cannot mess it up. And that might be my favorite thing about functional mushrooms is that if they're not working for you, just stop taking them. There are no side effects. There are no withdrawal symptoms. There is no weeding off of. They're just food in a really concentrated form. So we are offering them in a way that should be an upgrade to a habit you already have. So you don't change your lifestyle for them, you incorporate them into you. And if you're not getting the benefits you want, or if you are experiencing something that was unexpected and you don't want it, you could just stop taking them and maybe introduce them at a different time, or maybe consider putting them into a different place that you hadn't thought of originally after a bit of a break. And it's okay to do that. And I also love, Desiree, that you say to people all the time, take a break. I've been taking functional mushrooms essentially every single day we're going to hit 4 years here pretty soon. But it doesn't mean that I don't take a break from certain mushrooms at certain times. I feel like I probably have legitimately put a mushroom in my body every single day for that time, but I definitely have not taken the same products during that time. And I have just really learned to listen to what my body is asking for, what my body needs, and to support whatever it is at the time. And I think that's so important for people to not put themselves in a box and think, I take reishi at night, I take it at this time every single day, and that's all I can do because that's what it says. We have a very close friend who takes her reishi in the morning. That's what works for her. And I love that she didn't listen to everyone else, and it has changed her life. And calm in the day is a beautiful thing for some people. So when you get them, just use them. They will not work if you keep them on the counter.
Exactly.
You have to put them in your body. So as long as you're putting them in your body and you're doing it at a time of day that makes sense for you, or you're putting them into a food or beverage that you already love and is part of your routine, you're doing it right. So just keep doing it.
I do want to touch quickly on taking a break, because that is kind of another side question or a follow-up question that people will ask. There are certain supplements where it's recommended to take a break. With functional mushrooms, we haven't come across any research that says that you do need to take a break from them. It's also known like as a drug holiday, so to speak, or supplement holiday. It's not required. There's no evidence to suggest that it must be done. However, if you are feeling called to take it, then take a break for a period of time and notice the difference. We have, or people in our community have maybe unintentionally taken a break because they ran out and didn't plan accordingly. And so by the time their refill pouch comes in, they are without. And I had somebody recently reach out and was like, oh, wow, I totally realized that I cannot go without cordyceps because of the energy levels throughout the day. And I was so tired, and wow, it makes such a difference. If you are feeling called to it, do it. It's great to reassess how you're feeling, because sometimes when we've been taking something for a longer period of time, and then we wonder, is this actually working for me still as great as it was before? Well, maybe that's just your body and you recalibrating to a new normal. Maybe there does need to be either a dose change, or maybe you need to check in with yourself and find out, yes, it actually does still work for me. This is great. I'm on the right path to continue with it.
Yeah, it's okay to change it up. And I think that brings us to something that people often ask after, like you've said, they're ready for that refill pouch. They've been doing the thing they are experiencing the benefits and they want more of it. And now they're recognizing, okay, I've addressed this area of my life. Let's say it is sleep, which is a great place to start. We all have to do it.
Yeah.
So you've got your sleep on point. You've addressed that. Maybe it's reishi that's supporting that. And now there's this other thing I want to support. And maybe it's just immune function. Maybe it's just that. Can you stack multiple functional mushrooms or products in one day? We get this question almost as much as the first one. Where do I start? So now I've started and people want more. And this is the way of mushrooms. This is the way of mushrooms. This is how we became mushroom nerds. Tell us about stacking mushrooms and if you can do it and how do you do it?
The short answer, yes, you absolutely can stack multiple mushrooms per day, as many as you like. Each person will respond differently to particular functional mushrooms. And so if you're feeling called to try that, then listen to that. Each functional mushroom has a different daily max quantity crude equivalent. We are going by Health Canada's mushroom monograph, where they are listing out the daily max quantity crude equivalent amounts for each of the functional mushrooms that Health Canada considers to have medicinal value. All of our products are dosed according to that mushroom monograph to make sure that we are within Health Canada's guidelines, as well as the current research. What is the current research saying? Brandi, you mentioned in your story that when you were really diving deep into lion's mane for neurogenesis and you found the study and they were taking higher doses than what you were taking. We typically say, of course, each study really differs depending on the dose that they're examining in that study. But generally speaking, from what we've observed, the doses that they are using are around 3,000 milligrams quantity crude equivalent and above. Depends on the mushroom, depends on the study. Each functional mushroom has a different daily max. You can know that when you're taking our products, they are dosed according to research, dosed according to Health Canada's mushroom monograph. So if you feel called to take multiple different functional mushrooms to address multiple concerns, yes, you for sure can.
You can do it. And I think what you need to know is if you are using two products that might have the same mushroom in them, could you inadvertently get outside of that max acceptable dose? And a great example for us is with our chaga product. And chaga for Health Canada has the lowest maximum acceptable dose at 3,600 milligrams per day max. And I mean, it was hard for us because all of our other products offer a much higher quantity crude equivalent than that. But we can't go outside of that if we want to have an NPN, a natural product number, or a license for this product. So one of our chaga capsules has a quantity crude equivalent of 3,600 milligrams in it. Really intentionally, that's the max dose. Now, our sixth mushroom blend, the green one, used to be called Rejuvenate Blend, has chaga in it. And our Lori, who works with us, is a real lover of chaga. She takes it every single day and she really feels the benefits as an anti-inflammatory. She's a soccer player. She is taking care of those knees, but she has to be very mindful of whether she's taking it in the blend or in the capsule. And she won't do both because she's a rule follower. So just watching how much you're taking, if you are stacking some of the blends along with capsules, there isn't good research to show that there's benefit for you to go over. We always want to make sure that you're not wasting your money taking a whole bunch of something where you've already reached the ceiling dose at that max acceptable dose. And without research, we also really don't know what would happen if you took the whole bottle of lion's mane in a day. Nobody has done that study, thank goodness, because who's going to sign up to be the research participant there? So I think it's just important to know that all three of our blends have lion's mane as the base. They all have lion's mane mushroom in them. If you are taking one of those, you're getting some lion's mane in the day. If you want to take some more capsules, be mindful the max acceptable dose is 12,000 milligrams of lion's mane. And then you've got to do a bit of math. And we'll talk about that, I think, a little later on. And if you're taking chaga and you know that capsules are your thing, you're taking one a day, don't take the 6 mushroom blend as well. You do have to do a little bit of thinking and sorting. And this is when often people will reach out to us to essentially do the math for them. Until we have an app for that, we'll help you do the math. So what happens then? You're also eating, because this is our medicine, right? Let food be thy medicine. And we are big believers that food is what can help you stay well and can bring you back to health if you have gotten off track. And these mushrooms are just in addition to food. Should you be taking our functional mushroom products with food?
Yeah, I think it really depends on if you are somebody who has digestive upset when you're taking the functional mushrooms. And This question leads into another question where people will say, I am taking functional mushrooms and I'm noticing a change in bowel habits. Is this normal? Because of functional mushrooms acting as a prebiotic, feeding the beneficial bacteria, promoting a healthy microbiome, feeding those particular strains that are considered healthy for us based on the research, it's changing things up. And sometimes you need to have a change in bowel habits and your body is recalibrating. And it is common, just based on community feedback, based on my own personal use, that when you do have a bit of an imbalance or dysbiosis in your gut microbiome, that a change in bowel habits for a few days after starting a new functional mushroom can be considered normal, especially if you are somebody who has experienced some gut dysfunction. For example, people who, let's say, have just recently done a round of antibiotics for a particular condition, it was recommended, and then they notice that they feel off just because the antibiotics wiped out their beneficial microbiome, and that whole community taking a high dose functional mushroom extract, which our products are, can totally change the system for a few days, right? Because your microbiome has essentially been wiped out with the beneficial bacterial species, because antibiotics can't discern between good bacteria and bad bacteria. And so it's normal to have a change in bowel habits, whatever that may be for you, for a few days. If you're somebody that's having digestive upset, you can try taking it with food. If you know that you're more prone to that and have that sensitivity and disposition, then try taking it with food. I personally have taken with both. Sometimes I'll take with lunch, sometimes I'll take on an empty stomach. I personally am fine. It depends on the individual person. I'm not sure if you would agree or add anything to that.
Yeah, no, I do. And I know the question comes to us, do I have to take it with food, because of what we've had to write on our labels, because our labels have to be compliant. And if there's any chance, or if any research has shown that people have had digestive upset, then we have to mention that. And I think it's fair to say that. It's lovely, actually, to list what the side effect could be. And it's very cool that there's one. That this is not, I think in one of the earlier episodes, I actually brought out the leaflet of the pharmaceutical drug that I took for over a decade, and it covered the entire desk that we were sitting at with the possible side effects from that. So if this is the side effect, is gastrointestinal upset, and you know why it's happening, and you can give it that day, give it that bit of time to see, will this resolve? Is this just my microbiome at the buffet? And I literally have my good bacteria eating a lot of this good prebiotic food that I'm giving to it. And as it experiences change, that can be hard. Change is often hard, but good things almost always come from it. And I think this is one of those cases. So taking it with food for people sometimes gives them some comfort in knowing that their stomach feels better when it's got a bit of something in it, if it is going through any kind of digestion. This is the thing. I know I have some elderly people in my life that love their functional mushrooms, but are insistent that they take it with food because it says it on the label. And again, rule followers. And then they get into, I don't want to eat food before I go to bed, but I'm taking my reishi before bed. Do I have to eat with it? And I just say to them, if you want to have a bite of banana because it makes you feel better, do it. But no, you are not eating a meal before bed so that you can take reishi. That's just not the case. You have to, again, do what's right for you and understand what's happening in your body when you are adding that. Thank you for that. It's really helpful to hear from a naturopathic doctor that a change in bowel habits is not a negative thing. This is your body coming into balance again. What about when we hear about kids? Can kids take functional mushrooms? This is such a sensitive topic because, according to Health Canada, our products have been regulated for adults, and that in Canada is 18 years and older. But I think we can talk anecdotally, and I'm a mom, and I think it's easy for me to say what I do. But what is your general feeling about functional mushrooms in kids? I'm putting you on the spot.
No, it is a really great question, because a lot of people are looking for alternatives for supporting their children, especially with mood support, with sleep support, stress, supporting their immune system. So it's a really great question, because if people are doing that for themselves, they of course want to, by extension, do that for their children. On Health Canada's mushroom monograph, they don't list any particular dosing, so there's no recommendations for those under 18 years of age. When somebody does ask us, we unfortunately are not able to say anything about that, anything about max dosing. We do have people within our community who will say, I trust what I know, and they will give functional mushrooms to their kids and they will dose it by weight. That's a decision for them to make. We can't provide that advice because that would constitute providing medical advice. I know many people who give functional mushrooms to their children after they've consulted with their doctor or naturopathic doctor to go about from there. It's something that it's unfortunate because we wish that we could provide an answer for people other than the mushroom monograph. According to Health Canada, doesn't say anything.
That's it. The answer is don't ask us. Ask yourself. Go with your gut. If you're taking them, you know what you're experiencing. You've developed a relationship with the mushroom intelligence inside these products, then you have to do what makes sense for your family. But having some kind of healthcare practitioner on your side, that might be a nutritionist, that might be a naturopathic doctor who knows your child and who knows you, because we love you, Eversio community, but the truth is it puts us in a tight situation when we are asked for medical advice that we legally aren't allowed to give. I can tell you, yes, I give them to my children. Now, my children are teenagers now, and they have both benefited from having them. They are lucky to be growing up in a time where they have not developed a chronic health condition. I came to them to get me out of a mess that I got myself into, and it took me a long time to get myself into that mess. And I am so, so grateful to have gotten myself out of it. Now I take functional mushrooms daily as preventative medicine or as the upgrade when I know I'm going to need extra cognitive function, extra energy, the best sleep of my life. People around me are sick and there's no way I'm ever getting sick again. They're fun for me. I am using functional mushrooms as a sidekick to live an optimized life. And that's great. I don't want to make that decision for my own kids. My children take them when they ask for them. They're watching what I'm doing. They're learning about them. They're understanding the science. And if they come to me and say, hey, I'm experiencing this, do you think mushrooms would work? I give them to them and I say, try it out. And that has been a great experience for us. So do what's right for you.
Another thing too to consider is people ask a follow-up question to this, and a related question is, what if I am pregnant or breastfeeding? Can I take these functional mushrooms? And we always say that you must consult with your healthcare practitioner, a naturopathic doctor, healthcare practitioners who essentially can prescribe. As naturopathic doctors, we're able to prescribe a specific dose. And with pregnancy and breastfeeding, when you look at Health Canada's mushroom monograph, there are 3 functional mushrooms that do not contain a note from Health Canada. And the note says, consult with your healthcare practitioner prior to consuming if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. And the 3 functional mushrooms that don't have that note are reishi, shiitake, and maitake. Of those 3, we only have reishi by itself without other functional mushrooms. We do have, as you know, if you're listening, we have shiitake and maitake in our product lineup, but they're not by themselves. They're present in the blend. The main thing to consider is that with respect to kids, with respect to pregnancy and breastfeeding, you do need to consult your healthcare practitioner because they know your health history. They know all of those things, and they can have a conversation with you to provide informed consent, to provide education, and ultimately help you as an ally to determine what is the best thing to do based on your current health status.
Absolutely. And again, we're going to have listeners that are coming to this podcast as a source of health information because they don't have access to a naturopathic doctor, unfortunately, yet. In Canada, anyway, we do not have funding for that. We do not include that as part of our medical services plan to the public. And I just dream of the day when we do have that. But we're not there yet. And if it becomes a financial hindrance to support because they aren't seeing a naturopathic doctor because it is not provided to them, people are going to the internet for this information. And that can be a great thing. That can be a great thing if you know how to read research. Well, I certainly didn't. I went to university. I became a teacher. I didn't know how to read the scientific research I started looking at the beginning of this journey. I was lucky to sit beside mycologists, scientists, doctors that helped me understand how to look at and assess what I was reading. But what I did learn is what we're doing here in Canada and the United States is very different than what's happening in other countries around the world. And sometimes it is helpful to look at research outside of our culture because cultures are very different. And we are Western medical practice, is what we're experiencing. And when you look at cultures, and it's not even necessarily Eastern medicine, one of the greatest studies I read with the mycologist that we've been working with was from Colombia. And it was research on children. These children were between the ages of 3 and 5 years old. And when we found this study, I mean, I think I ran laps around the office, like finally some research on children. Just the fact that research was done on children showed the safety and efficacy of mushrooms, because they wouldn't do a study if there was a chance of harm. And this was a preschool that was used, a group of preschool age students, and it was specific to reishi polysaccharides, so the beta glucans coming from reishi mushrooms. They took this really high potency extract and they put it into yogurt tubes, and these children were given reishi polysaccharides each day before school to see what would happen versus a group and that was not using the polysaccharides, and the results were phenomenal. They were phenomenal. The children using mushroom extracts just didn't get sick like we typically see preschool age children experiencing as they go into school for the first time and their immune systems are exposed to so much. And this actually happened right prior to the pandemic, which was so interesting. And I thought I'd love to see the research after to see how those children fared coming into that time in our world. So it's not that there's no research on children. It's that there's no research done in North America on children. And if other places have experienced benefits, I think we are on our way to doing that one day as well. We're just not there yet. So do your own research, get out there, get on Google Scholar, get on PubMed, be careful about what you're reading, ask for help from someone around you if you have access to doctors and scientists in your life. It's an adventure and you will love what you learn there. It's only good stuff. Let's get into the actual products themselves. What does fruiting body mean? Another question we get all the time. What are you saying to me? Fruiting body? Fruit? I thought these were mushrooms. Tell us, what is your take on it? What is fruiting body?
The life cycle of a mushroom has many different stages. The fruiting body is the particular stage in the life cycle where we are using those functional mushrooms for our extraction process. So when you're in a grocery store and you see mushrooms there, like portobello mushrooms, creminis, whatever mushrooms you see that are there, those are the fruiting body. That's the part that we are using for the extraction process for our products.
Why do we have to say fruiting body if that's the part that is used as medicine? We're looking at two sides of a spectrum, and we are using the fruiting body of the life cycle, and not all functional mushroom products are made from that. And the ones that aren't made from that, do you want to talk a little bit about what the alternative would be if it wasn't a fruiting body only product?
On the market, the most common supplements are going to be fruiting body only. There are also going to be mycelium-based products, and mycelium is the root structure of the mushroom. And then you might also see full spectrum products, which is including all of it. And so mycelium is not inherently bad, and you've probably heard us speak about that and speak to it on other podcast episodes as well as on social media. We're constantly sharing the education around that. Mycelium is not inherently bad. The reason we're using the fruiting body is because that's where the highest percentages of beneficial compounds are going to be in that particular stage of the mushroom life cycle. We want to take these products for particular health benefits. We're trying to achieve that. So we want to take the part of the mushroom life cycle that is going to be conducive to that. Now, this also leads into the question and topic of manufacturing and production of functional mushroom supplements. And I know you have a lot to say about this too, but with products that are mycelium products, they're typically on the market, they're going to be mycelium on grain products or MOG products. So when you're looking at functional mushrooms and where they're grown or how they're grown, our products are grown on wood. They're only grown on wood. And the reason being is when you look at the research comparing mushroom products grown on wood versus grown on grain, the mushrooms that were grown on wood had higher percentages of beneficial compounds. And increased activity for whatever they're being examined for. And when you're looking at functional mushrooms that are grown on grain, they don't have as high percentages of these beneficial compounds. Now you go into wondering, okay, so that's talking about the fruiting body products, but what about these mycelium on grain products? Well, when they're grown on grain, the mycelium is the root structure of the mushroom, and the mycelium is entangling with that grain. So if you're taking the mycelium and putting it into your product, the grain is growing too because they're entangled, right? They're intertwined. And when you're putting the grain in that product, then when you would have the compounds from the mycelium and the mycelium in there, the potency is going down because the grain is inherently taking up space. If the grain is there, you're not going to have as much mycelium in there because just science and facts of it being present, right? And especially if you're somebody who is avoiding grain, you're avoiding grain in every area of your life, but then you're taking a supplement that has grain in it. What's the point in taking the supplement? One, because you're not getting the beneficial compounds, so there's no point. You're going to have to take a ton of it. But then if you're taking a ton of it, you're going to be taking a ton of grain. So it kind of defeats the purpose of eliminating grain in your diet.
So why do people do it then? Why do we have mycelium on grain products sitting on the shelf beside fruiting body only products?
Because it's quick. It's quicker to grow on grain than growing on wood. So it's quick and it's cheaper. It comes down to cost. It comes down to cost for providing it to the consumer. It's cheaper to do it.
Yeah. Wealth before health is the the simple answer. What really gets me, what I see happening is that yes, this is not a mycelium versus fruiting body question. Mycelium is amazing. It's full of beneficial compounds in it. When one day we have access to products that are pure mycelium, that will be a great day. And would we put that in our product? 1000% we would put that in our product. But we don't, because today the products that you see on the market calling themselves mycelium are not pure mycelium. They are mycelium on grain. Manufacturers don't always say that. There are even companies, you know them, that are out there today that are some of the most popular companies that don't tell you what is the grain. Some companies do. They will say myceliated brown rice on the back. And thank you for being transparent. We know there's rice in there. That's on the consumer to flip it over and read it, like I did. But there are brands out there that just say full spectrum and they don't tell you what grain is left in that product. And it's on you to go and ask them and receive a COA and go, oh, there's sorghum in this product. What's sorghum? Or it's millet or whatever oats they're growing on. Companies, to me, should be responsible about being transparent about all of the ingredients there. A company that's leading you to believe that it's all mycelium is not telling the truth. We work with the highest level of extraction available on the planet today. These facilities are like university campuses. The bioreactors that are used to grow pure mycelium for research are growing in a liquid substrate. So it's a nutrient broth. It is liquid. Think of it as a big soup. That soup becomes the food for the mycelium. The mycelium is floating around in there, eating the nutrient broth in order to grow. When the mycelium as a whole is removed, of course, the liquid can just go away and we have pure mycelium. And when we dry that and we can put it through an extraction process, there's very little left, which makes this a very, very expensive product. And this is medicine. And I think we already see this being used in a lot of research, and it's so promising. And could these be the replacements for pharmaceuticals one day? I'll probably get my kneecaps broken for saying it, but I do think that we will see more fungi and less pharma in our future. But it's not what you're seeing on the shelf in health food stores today. You are not seeing pure mycelium that was grown in a nutrient broth and has had all of the substrate, what it's used to be grown on, removed. You're seeing mycelium on grain. The grain cannot be removed because of the nature of mycelium and how it entangles. It's all together. It's still there. The amount of rice that was used in the plastic bag where this process began is still in your product. So don't be fooled by that. Just buyer beware. Know what works for you. It's a choice. We choose fruiting body only because we just don't want to be involved with the grain. We want it to come the way that it was grown in nature. All functional mushrooms in nature grow on wood. Period. You can walk in the forest. Don't take our word for it. This is basic science. We go today. I'm in the forest this morning. There are the turkey tail mushrooms growing on the log on the path beside me. There are the oyster mushrooms up the side of the tree on the path on the other side. They grow on wood for a reason. We choose to source what is closest to nature as we can. And then there's a cost to that, because then we get into the extraction ratios. Do we want to talk about that next?
Let's talk about it, because the extraction ratios are misunderstood. There are some people out there who, first of all, don't understand what's the point of the extraction ratio. Okay, Eversio has it on their label. There are other companies that do, some companies that don't. Some people are probably wondering, why is it important? And it's maybe not something that they gravitate towards because they don't know. But then there are probably other people who are a bit skeptical about extraction ratios,
Mm-hmm.
because generally speaking, the higher you go up, the more concentrated the product. Is there a
Mm-hmm.
point at which it's not relevant? Is it a point at which it's marketing fluff? What do you think?
I think I know exactly what you're talking about. And the answer is yes, there's a lot of marketing fluff out there, and it is disheartening. And we just have recently seen it because and I rant about this all the time, but the gummies, we recently saw a gummy product that listed an extract used in the formulation of their gummy, and it was a 100-to-1 extract. And that's over the line. Like, that is taking advantage and turning extract ratios into a marketing term, and they're not. Again, they are science, but a 100-to-1 is not something that we can get behind. That is a claim that a company is making in order to make their product seem more potent than it actually is, but we're dealing with something natural, and a 100-to-1 is just not. It's not a thing. If you are going past, I would say 16-to-1 is the highest extraction ratio you should ever look to, and that would be specifically with reishi mushroom, and that's because of the natural characteristics, the hardness of the mushroom. That's why we need that higher extraction ratio with that particular fungi. Extraction ratios to me are massively important, and we put them on our product because we believe in transparency, and that comes down to the cost. This just made so much sense to me in the beginning, and I still always shocked at how difficult it can be to understand. So let's break it right down and not let anybody leave this podcast. If you are listening, don't go until you feel like you can get this. So extraction ratio is just simply, it is a measure of dried mushroom to finished extract powder. That's it. If you see, let's use lion's mane because it was my favorite and this is where I learned it. If you imagine what a lion's mane mushroom looks like when you harvest it off the tree, it's this beautiful toothed fungus. It's full of water. It's probably 90% water when you're holding it in your hands after it's been harvested from the forest. It was eating that tree. That tree was its food. And it was putting the mycelium out into the tree as it used that tree as food. When you harvest it away, all the mycelium is still inside the tree. Keep that in mind. We're not consuming the mycelium because it's still in the forest. And guess what? When I come back next year, there'll be another lion's mane mushroom there because I've left the mycelium behind. But I'm holding the fruiting body in my hand. I need to dry that out if I want it to become medicine. If I want to just eat it as food, yes, it's going to be delicious and I'm going to get some benefits from it. But if I want the medicine inside, and when I say that, I'm talking about beta glucans. When it comes to lion's mane, I'm also talking about the haricinones specifically found in the fruiting body. Those are the two things from lion's mane that people are talking about. You can call them terpenes if you want. I need to dry that out before I can start turning it into the medicine piece. So if I take one lion's mane mushroom and I dehydrate it, essentially, I dry it. And for us, this is done in the sun. But if people are working in a lab, this would be done in a dehydrator. That mushroom is going to weigh a lot less than it did when it was full of water. And now I take the weight of that one dehydrated mushroom and I calculate down. So I'm going to dry that, I'm going to grind it, and I'm going to put it back into water in order to put it through a hot water extraction process. And I'm essentially cooking it down to release the beneficial compounds so that they will be bioavailable to my human body. We do have some of the enzyme that can break down the beta glucans and make them bioavailable to us, but we don't have enough of it to do it as well as that pressure cooker or hot water can do it. Science, again, has learned over time that if we grind it as fine as we can, some people will say this is micronized, which is very fancy for ground very fine. And we do that. We will micronize down these mushrooms and then put them through an extraction process to release the beneficial compounds. Now, if I take that mass, it's like a syrup. You can think of it like molasses. So we've got a thick, pasty liquid now. And if we just take that, we have what we have started with and we have what we're left over. And if we were to dry that out and give it back to you, you now have a 1-to-1. Whatever beneficial compounds were in that initial mushroom I harvested are in that end product that I've got to you now. That's a 1-to-1. It's an extract. What's happening when we have an 8-to-1? I think you can guess. We have started with 8 lion's mane mushrooms, dried them. So we have a weight of dried mushroom. 8 mushrooms are ground down. They are put through an extract process. And what's left over is 1. So we have what was in 8 is now in this one same dose. So if I have the 1-to-1 dose and the 8-to-1 dose, these are both, let's say, 500 milligrams. But 500 milligrams of an 8-to-1 has 8 times the medicine, because there's the medicine from all 8 of the mushrooms in this one, where this one just has the medicine from the one mushroom. So this is when we talk about potency. The extraction ratio is there to explain to you and to deliver to you potency. Now, people get upset about, oh, but you have an 8-to-1, you have a 10-to-1, you have a 12-to-1, but what am I really getting? You will not know what you are getting if the company is not telling you about the percentage of specific beneficial compounds in that product. So the extraction ratio means nothing if the company's not saying it's 35% beta glucans when we're done. 35% of what you're getting in your 500 milligram capsule is beta glucans, for instance. If they're saying polysaccharides, that is old science. That is not enough information. It's not specific. Polysaccharide is an umbrella term. There are alpha glucans are polysaccharides. That's just starch. That's not telling you anything. Beta glucans are what you're seeing in research. These are the immunomodulating molecules that go in the body, activate the immune system, do all of the beautiful, they do many, many things. And that's what we need to know about in science today. For some mushrooms, putting them through a dual extraction process means you're repeating exactly what I just said, but you're using alcohol instead of water to allow us to access the alcohol soluble compounds that are just still sitting there. It's like leaving medicine on the table to me. And not all mushrooms need a dual extract. They don't all need an alcohol extraction process, but it's science in progress. And something we've learned about lion's mane when we're using it specifically for brain health is they have the fruiting bodies have haricinones, and haricinones are very small molecular weight molecules that can pass the blood-brain barrier. And this is very cool science. This is where we're getting the amazing, what we think will be great brain research. And it's new. And companies that tell you that they know everything about it, we don't even have a way to test it in Canada. We cannot test for the level of haricinones. If we want to test for that, we are always looking for new labs to develop new testing methods and processes so that we can get accurate results, so that we can deliver them and be transparent. But if a company is telling you, oh, lion's mane is amazing because it has haricinones, but then they're not telling you that they've tested for them, we have to be careful about that. So yes, extraction ratio is important if you are paying a premium amount of money for a product, because you want to know that it has a premium amount of beneficial compounds in it, and that comes from a high extraction process. If it says it's a 20-to-1, and then they don't tell you the level of beta glucans, or they don't tell you triterpenoids, or they don't tell you betulinic acid in your chaga or cordycepin in your cordyceps, it doesn't matter about the extraction. They need to come together. You need both together. I hope that's helpful.
I love listening to you explain it, and I've heard you explain quantity crude equivalent and the extraction ratio so many times, but I think you explain it in such a digestible way. And we see this all the time. Like as a consumer, you'll see products that will say they're all dual extracts, but then they don't list those molecules that should be present should it be a dual extract. Or maybe certain mushrooms don't even need to be, like you said, a dual extract, but it's just marketing lingo. And it's unfortunate. And that's why it's so important for us, because we just want to educate other people so that they can make their own educated and informed decision about what's best for them. Because I know
Yeah.
for you and even myself as well, just when you feel like the wool has been pulled over your eyes and you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you've been duped, it's a really yucky feeling to feel that,
It is.
especially when you are, for lack of a better term, desperate to improve your health when you're really suffering. It's just a horrible feeling to experience.
Yeah, and you brought up that study that I read. It was one of those great studies. Do I think everything needs to be a double-blind, placebo-controlled study in order to be valuable? I do not. I think an N of one study with yourself can be exactly what you need. But at the time, I was looking for evidence. And the study that I found with this lion's mane product, they were using 3,000 milligrams quantity crude equivalent of lion's mane per day over the course of 4 months. And they had great results. And I was taking 500 milligrams of a lion's mane mycelium on grain. So when I started doing that calculation and I thought, how do I get to the 3,000 milligrams? That's when the extraction ratio really became just math to me. So I knew that if I was taking a 500 milligram capsule, but I was taking an 8-to-1 extract, I had to multiply 500 times 8 equals 4,000. And I knew if I did that, now I have 4,000 milligrams quantity crude equivalent. And I was at that dose. There I was. And that's our lion's mane product today. It's as simple as that. It's just being in line with the research and sharing the math and then helping people to figure out all of that math. And for us, because we have changed our label, gosh, I don't know, 8 times now. Like poor Dr. Shannon, she's a naturopathic doctor who takes care of all of our regulatory affairs and quality control, quality assurance, deals with our organic certifications, all of our certifications. And she is just constantly rewriting the labels so that they are compliant. And that is FDA compliant for our US labels or Health Canada compliant in Canada. And we just keep putting more information on them to the point where the whole label is just going to be this information, but you will see we calculate there for you the quantity crude equivalent so that you can know this is what we started with. If I started with 4,000 milligrams of dried mushroom, what I'm giving to you in the end is 500 milligrams in a capsule, but it is the medicine that was in the 4,000 milligrams to begin with. Versus a 1-to-1 would be I started with 500 milligrams of lion's mane and I'm giving you back 500 milligrams of lion's mane. It's just been through an extraction process. So the high percentage of the beneficial compounds is coming when we really up what we are starting with. We're upping the amount of dry mushrooms at the beginning so that we can concentrate in a small amount. Because I don't want to take 6 capsules. I don't want to do that. I just am someone who believes as I get older in simplifying life. I want to take 1 capsule and get on with my day, or I want to put a half a teaspoon in my smoothie, not 2 tablespoons and then have my smoothie really have that taste. That is not what I'm looking for. So I think it is not one thing. It is understanding so much of the complexity around this extraction process with mushrooms. That is how you are going to get down to whether or not the product you're holding is a quality product. You're looking for an extraction ratio. You're looking for them to list a quantity crude equivalent. It sometimes says QCE. You are looking for a percentage of beneficial compounds to be listed there. And then beyond that, you also want it to be organic. And that means they have to list that. And if you don't know if the company really is organic or not, you just have to go on the database, right? The USDA organic certification database will type in the name of the company. If they're not there, they're fake news. And that was hard for me to believe too, that there were companies that would do that, but sadly they exist. It's on the consumer to find a company you can trust and let them do the math, or do the math yourself and know what you're actually getting.
Something that I think we should talk about, you already touched on it with the micronization, and you had said we do it too, but we don't stop at the micronization process. If you're going through micronization, like you said, is just grinding up super fine, but there are products that it'll say micronized product, but they stop at the micronization and they don't continue with the extract. Segueing into a question that I have for you is that a lot of people will ask about the origin of where our functional mushroom supplements are coming from. Where are your mushrooms grown? We're a Canadian company. We're located in Vancouver, British Columbia. And we say on our website proudly that we are sourcing our functional mushrooms from China. Are you able to give our listeners an idea of the landscape of that? And because there are some
Mhm.
companies that are saying we source in Canada, we're sourcing here, our functional mushrooms are from here, and there is this fear, I think, around getting functional mushrooms from a place outside of North America and especially from China. Are you able to explain to our listeners about this?
Absolutely. And I love that question. Like, do you own your own mushroom farm? I wish. I wish, and I'd be lying to tell you if I didn't say that Craig wanted to do that in the beginning of starting this company. Like we drove through the mountains of British Columbia looking and seeing there are incredible mushroom farmers here in British Columbia where we live who are cultivating mushrooms right here. But these mushrooms are used as food. They're used as food, or there are companies that are growing here in British Columbia, across Canada, that are turning them into products, into supplements or nutraceuticals, sometimes they're called, but they aren't going to have the potency that we have because what we don't have here are the extraction facilities that do what I just explained to you, that are taking the mushrooms, drying them, grinding them, putting them through an extraction, and then turning them into these high potency extracts that can be tested for the microbials, that can be tested for heavy metals, that can be tested for mycotoxins, that can be tested for all of the beneficial things, and then delivered at a price we could afford. And this was the question. We probably could do that, right? Okay, so, little known fact about us is that we actually have a controlled substance dealer's license to do research and development with psilocybin producing mushrooms. So, that came early on in our business. And we did this because we are advocates for an alternative to what is available for mental health, end of life, addiction, OCD, the list could go on. We know that the research on psychedelics for things that we're not doing a good job of addressing in our world, the research is incredible. And we were passionate about being part of that 4 years ago in the beginning of the Eversio experience. We work with scientists and doctors and labs and pharmacists to develop how we're going to do research. So when you grow a psilocybin producing mushroom, you for sure are only harvesting the fruiting body. And anybody out there who's consumed psilocybin, you know this. We are not consuming the mycelium of the psilocybin producing mushrooms. So this was a big clue for me about the fruiting body piece too. After you have harvested that mushroom, we need to find out what is inside this mushroom as far as medicine, the psilocybin, which is very potent. And here is a mushroom compound that you are going to notice. If you have a ton of psilocybin, your experience is going to be very different than if you have a very small amount of psilocybin. So we learned very early on that these should be grown in a lab because of the potency of the beneficial compound. And that's why most psilocybin mushrooms that are used in research, and very few actual mushrooms are, usually psilocybin research is done with a synthetic psilocybin compound, which is unfortunate to me. We should be using a natural substance when we can. And that's what we wanted to bring to the world. These mushrooms are grown on grain in a lab so that we can test these compounds inside the fruiting body and make them very specific. We're talking about 1% psilocybin. When we are looking for mushroom compounds where we're going to have 50%, say, beta glucans, we can get these from outside. We can get them when they are grown outside. Mother Nature can do this for us, but not here, because the cost of what it would be for us to do a large scale psilocybin producing mushroom production is very small scale in comparison. When we're looking for large scale, because we need lots of mushrooms in order to get these supplements made for us, we're taking it every single day. We might be taking a larger dose every day. You're not taking psilocybin large doses every single day. That just doesn't even make sense. So when we need something on a large scale, we need space, we need land. And you all, I don't have to tell you about land cost in North America today, right? We live in Vancouver. I think it's us and LA that are the highest land costs we have. So when we looked at, could we actually afford, we're cultivating psilocybin producing mushrooms for research and development, not for public use. These are to go to clinical trials to research. We're doing that inside a lab where we can control it. We're dealing with really small percentages of compounds. Could we also have a farm outside? When we looked at it, there's no way that we could have developed the product that we offer today at a price point that I felt good about suggesting people pay for their wellness. It wasn't what I was taking. The products that I found and I was taking, I found through traditional Chinese medicine practitioners from China, where they practice traditional Chinese medicine. And the families growing these mushrooms have been doing it for literal centuries. When Craig traveled there to meet with these families, to meet with the cultivators, to be at the mushroom base, to be in the research facility, to be at the extraction facility, this is science so far beyond anything we have here in North America yet. Will we have it one day? I hope so, but we don't have it today. And that's as simple as that. And I say I'm drinking a cup of matcha right now. And as I made this matcha this morning with green tea leaves ground, right? That's what matcha is. Matcha powder is just ground green tea leaves. Those green tea leaves came from Japan. They came from Kyoto, Japan. You know why? That's who grows the best. So we're not thinking, oh, I hope my matcha came from Canada. I really hope my matcha did not come from Canada, because it's not what we do. And I think we need to be very mindful of that when we are worrying about where things come from. So we just refer to DDAO. So our mushrooms come to us because we believe in the Taoist philosophy of DDAO. And this is a concept of growing mushrooms and herbs in their spiritual and native homeland, their preferred environment, atmospheric energy, pressure, and altitude required to grow and thrive. When we grow things DDAO, it's like they deliver their intended spiritual intention and potency to the body. And that's why we choose our mushrooms from the majestic mountain ranges of China. It's a beautiful part of the world that unfortunately has so much stigma attached to it. And I hope that we are soon to grow out of that as North Americans. Cheers to that.
Cheers to that. I mean, that was a beautiful explanation. And I love the comparison to psilocybin producing mushrooms, because it really paints the picture for us to understand the realities of the functional mushroom industry. And at some point, yeah, we do hope that there are advances here in North America. But until then, we are learning from the generations of farmers and cultivators in China who are so deeply connected to that practice.
Yes.
And to that entire process. And we're very grateful to have access to that, to have products that are highly concentrated with beneficial compounds to enact change in the body for a desired health outcome. And we've experienced it ourselves, right? That's what this is about. We're trying to share with others what we have learned, and sharing with others on this podcast and in our social media presence that these are the things that we wish that we had known when we were just learning about functional mushrooms, because all of these aspects are things that we would have wanted to know, because then maybe our decisions would have been different. So I really love that.
I think it comes to that the time in our life that we came to starting this company was also a time in our life where we were very intentionally choosing to see through a lens of love instead of fear. And when the question about where your mushrooms come from comes up, it's often coming from fear. And it's okay to be in that place. And I think you start to learn a lot when you ask questions through fear. And that is how I learned. I was concerned about heavy metals, and we should be concerned about heavy metals, right? These are neurotoxins. You can go back and listen to the episode. I think it's episode 2, where we talk about brain health, and listen to me rant about the neurotoxins that are around us all the time and in our food and in products and all over. I certainly didn't want to be putting a product out in the world that was going to have heavy metals in it and be part of that problem. Fortunately, it's something we can test for. It's something that our cultivators are super cognizant about. And we share our COAs so that we can show we are far, far, far below even what Health Canada allows as acceptable heavy metal content. So we knew we didn't have to worry about that. And the other thing people worry about are mycotoxins. So mycotoxins we hear people talking about fear of molds. And yes, it's a horrible thing. But when you look at the kingdom fungi, this is including mushrooms and yeasts and molds, they're all in there together. And molds and mushrooms are both part of the same kingdom, but they're not the same thing. And when we receive our product, we are testing for mycotoxins to make sure that you never have to worry about that, as you should be testing all food products for mycotoxins. I think peanuts are the worst for, and I think it's aflatoxin, that this is where we started to learn in these industries that they could be present and therefore we should test for them. But it's not something we've ever come across. We pay a lot of money for those tests and they come back great all of the time. But we'll still keep doing them because I'm putting the product in my body. It's a non-negotiable. So are we testing for heavy metals? 1,000%. Every single time. So we are manufacturing the product right here in British Columbia, but we're bringing in the raw materials from outside. Before they come to us, they're tested. When they come to us, we test them again, and we're not testing them. They're third-party lab tested, so that you don't have to take our supplier's word for it or our word for it. We have people that can do that for us and give us that peace of mind. So all of the things that you can test for, we should be testing for as companies. Why would we not share that with our community? Desiree, you were just telling me today, we have our favorite matcha company that we buy our matcha from, and it's right here in North Vancouver. It's a small family business. We just recently noticed that they're putting COAs on their website to show each batch of matcha comes in that they're testing for mycotoxins on their green tea. And I just love that so much. That's where we're going, is that people should be able to trust where their food comes from and who is the middleman between them and putting it in their body. I hope that that's helpful to people and that they have a little bit of a switch of lens to love instead of the fear around these products, to look at them with love and gratitude to Mother Nature for having built these products that can come to us with so much intelligence. We're half mushroom. We share 50% of our DNA with these. We shouldn't be afraid of them. They are part of us.
Yeah, agreed. And if you're somebody who is listening and you're looking at a website or looking at a label and you have questions, those questions are totally valid. And that is what the purpose of a customer service team is for, is to answer those questions. We make sure to continually update our FAQs. And if a company is saying that they source their extracts from within Canada and you have a question because you've heard the podcast and you're unsure, ask the question.
Please ask them and let us know what they say.
Like, what does that mean, right? Don't be afraid to ask these questions to gain better understanding. And if a company is not willing to answer your question or kind of sidesteps it, that gives you an indication of the answer. It tells you enough to be able to go from there.
It tells you enough. Oh, this is maybe one of the most heated I have an energy in my body about this topic that I often haven't had filming a podcast. We've shared so much health information, right? Really specific episodes about brain health and hormone health and men's health and gut health and all of the great things that mushrooms can help us with. But this topic gets a little bit close to home because yes, we've built a business on this. And I was a teacher. I had no right coming out and developing a mushroom product, except for that I felt like we could do it better. I felt like we could do it the way that I wanted to receive a product like this into my body at that time. And I think I get heated about it because I want the same for you, our listeners. I don't even care if you take our product. I want you to be mindful of what product you are choosing. And if you stick to that, choose a fruiting body only product if you are looking for beneficial compounds. Unless you know somebody that has a pure mycelium product that was grown on a nutrient broth. And if you find them, let me know. And make sure that you know what dose you're taking. And if you're going to put 500 milligrams of something in your body and that's it every day, I don't know that you're going to receive the benefits of what we're seeing in research. Maybe you are. And I love that if you are. But if you find research that shows what you want to happen, why wouldn't we match what that is? And that's what we tried to create, so that you can take one capsule or half a teaspoon and you can be in line with research. So know your dose, know your potency, know your dose. And then do ask about those beneficial compounds. Are they tested for? And is that percentage on a label somewhere or on a website if they can't put it on the label? And then do they have licensing? So are these FDA compliant? Are they Health Canada compliant? Are they licensed products? And then ask if they're organic certified. We live in a world today where we can't always afford to buy all of our food organic certified, but we are taking on the cost as a company to organic certify what we're putting out. The capsule itself, all of the ingredients in the capsule. And I think that is just this little step. If you're already on a health and wellness journey, you already know the value of putting organic things in your body when you can. And if that's the choice between two companies and it's a couple of dollars extra, that's when I do spend that, because that bottle's going to last me 2 months. Why would I not spend a couple of extra pennies every day to know that what's going in is organic? We always end with a review. Typically, we will end with a review on a product that we talked about. But in this episode, we didn't really talk about any specific product. So I'm just going to go to the one that's in my matcha today. And that is the 3 mushroom blend. It used to be called the Awaken blend. It's the yellow one. This is from a friend called Tia in the United States. And it's just from a couple of days ago, actually. And she says, I love this product. It has helped me every morning with energy, staying focused throughout the day, and I don't go a day without it. I love this product. And that's why I drink it too, Tia. It's the energy for me. I don't drink coffee. Matcha has a bit of caffeine in it, but I find by adding the 3 mushroom blend, it's the cordyceps in there that's giving me that sustained energy. I really just need one, and I have got really productivity in 2 places. I've got productivity in the mind because of the lion's mane and what's in the matcha, the L-theanine. And then I've also got that energy and productivity in the body. And it's flu season here, cold and flu season, and having that turkey tail on board, that's the 3rd mushroom in the 3 mushroom blend. That's my daily immune support. That's my favorite blend. And thank you, Tia, for sharing that it's yours as well.
That's a great review. My review is from Adam. Adam goes, where have you been all my life? Was struggling with nervous system regulation and started taking Chill Now about a month ago. With 1 supplement per day, I have moved up now to 2. Really grateful to have found this product. I think that's such a great way to articulate how reishi can be helpful, is with that nervous system dysregulation and trying to regulate your nervous system, helping your body with stress. Nervous system dysregulation is holding hands with stress. So if we can help with that, and we think of reishi for sleep, and we talk about it for stress, but another way to describe it and articulate it is nervous system dysregulation. So it's wonderful to hear. And that's something that maybe we don't think of. It's like a more of a quote unquote passive or indirect benefit of taking reishi, is supporting our nervous system to be more regulated, to be more calm, so that we can respond instead of react. So it's really cool to hear that. And reishi is like the unsung hero.
Yeah, we could probably do a whole episode on stress.
We should.
As I sit here with my gray hair, and Desiree said to me in the office the other day, I think your hair is turning brown again. And legitimately, I have had gray hair since really in my 20s. I was an elementary school teacher with 2 kids at home. I always have said it's the loving of my children in my life that turned my hair gray young, but I also didn't manage my stress very well. And is that part of the beginning? Can it be? There is some research that says it is. Stress and gray hair are related. And as I put more mushrooms in my body over the years and learned to regulate my stress and my nervous system, I think you might see me show up on a podcast one day with brown hair again. And I'm not dyeing it. I don't dye my hair. So we'll just see. We'll just see how fast, or if that continues to happen for me. But yeah, if you see the brown streaks in there, I'm not coloring it, friends. That's just nervous system regulation. And we'll end on that note. Thank you so much for joining us, everyone. We sure appreciate your comments and your questions. So keep them coming, and know that we're always sending you so much love.
Be well.